Welcome back, everybody. We're here to pull cards for May the 6th. I am going to be pulling one card for overall energy. After that, we'll be pulling one card for each sign, and we'll be combining all of those energies together to see what our overall message is for each sign. So, overall energy to start off with is what? Mm. We have the Empress card showing up in reverse. That's actually a tree in the background. Ba ba da da ba ba. Empress. Kind of looks like something else when you first glance at it, doesn't it? All right, what do we have with the Empress card in reverse? Because we're looking at the back of her throne, this has me feeling like there's something we're turning our backs on, and we're turning our fronts towards. This is really interesting to me because there's a little skull right there in that card. The back is towards that skull or towards the idea of death. And then we have messengers coming in on the hawk. The hawk has messages. And then we have the tree in the distance. To me, the tree talks about like a family tree, talks about life, talks about what we pass on to others. What is our legacy? So it looks like overall we're turning our backs on any kind of toxicity that would be harming us, causing us physical ailments, causing chaos in the family that would be harming us in any way. We are shutting that out basically by turning our back on it. And instead, what we're talking about, what we're sending messages about, is um, how to live longer, how to have a happier family. And family can be also, for me, shows up as tribe. So anybody who's important to us. And with this particular reading, I get the sense of this whole idea of, we are one. So this basically talks about the idea of looking at, you know, what does it take for us all to thrive, to turn our backs on those toxic things. And so I think this is going to be coming in at different levels for different ones of us. For some of us, it's going to be just turning our backs on toxic things to ourselves personally. For others of us, this is going to be turning our backs on toxic things that impact, the whole planet and everything in between. There's a whole range whenever you read the tarot, and especially whenever I'm reading a general reading, but also a general reading for several signs. So we're going to see how this plays out. We are going to see how this plays out. What comes up here? And this is for the 6th. All right, let's start off with Aries. Okay, so Aries, you guys have the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. Aries, I think that you're turning your back on whatever this toxicity is, however it's playing out in your life. I think you're turning your back on this toxicity because you're recognizing where it has brought negativity into your life. And you're recognizing that you don't want the effects of whatever this toxic thing is. So you guys could be turning your back on some type of addiction, bad habit, toxic relationship, um, anything that is keeping you from leaving the legacy that you want to leave in the world and send the messages out to the world that you want to send. Excuse me. Taurus, you're up next. Taurus. Okay, Taurus. You guys are showing up. King of Pentacles in reverse. What's happening here? Hmm. Taurus, I'm going to say that normally you're pretty laid back as far as your personality goes. I think what's happening here is um, I think something has pushed your buttons and kind of pushed you over the edge to where you're not laid back. Not necessarily that you're unjustified in your unhappiness or your anger, even, but there's something going on here where that laid backness is kind of on the back burner right now. You're definitely taking some very assertive action around this idea of turning your back on something that is toxic so that you can move towards leaving the legacy that you want to leave with your life. Whether that's, um, a legacy for kids to inherit, or whether that's, more like something like I do, because I don't have kids. I still want to impact the world in a very positive way. And so for some of you, that may be more of the type of legacy we're talking about. But either way, you have had it with whatever this toxicity is impacting the legacy you're leaving. You're just not going to have it anymore. Next up, we're looking at Gemini. Gemini. Seven of Cups for Geminis. Mhm. Hmm. This is interesting, Geminis, because what I'm hearing is pick your toxicity. So it seems to me like there's a lot of things going on in your life right now that are feeling really toxic. And so you may feel a little bit overwhelmed. If you were to say, today I'm getting rid of all the toxicity in my life, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed by that. Because then what would you be left with? That's what the feeling is that I'm getting here. Okay. So when I hear clairaudiently, pick your toxicity, this is basically advice from Sacred Spirit to find one thing that's toxic that you can eliminate to make room for something that would be positive and allow yourself to move forward in that way. Doesn't mean the other toxic things are going to stay in your life forever or that you're even going to allow them to stay in your life forever. But we're talking about, basically we're talking about eating an elephant here. And the only way to do that is one bite at a time. All right, let's look at Cancer. The elephant in the room for Geminis. Let's look at Cancer. Hmm. Cancer, I like it. Hanged Man showing up in reverse. For me, this talks about breaking free from some kind of toxicity. So this really echoes what we see on that overall energy. You may have felt like you were trapped, that you had to deal with or put up with this toxicity for a while for some kind of reason. Whatever was going on there, you're not feeling trapped anymore. You're feeling like, okay, I have busted out of this thing, broken free from whatever that was that made you feel trapped in that toxicity. Now you are moving towards leaving the legacy that you actually want to leave for those people in your sphere of influence. That's Cancer. Next up, we're looking at Leo. Okay, so Leos, I guess I should show you your cards, shouldn't I? You guys have the 6. This would be the Lovers. I like the depiction on here because it talks about this idea of um, contrast. Sometimes contrast is what you need on your team. So, Leo, I think that you're teaming up with somebody to leave some kind of toxicity behind and move forward. So, Leos, you may be talking to a therapist, you may be teaming up with your romantic partner, But something's going on where you're not doing this alone. You are leaving something toxic behind and moving forward in a good way. You're just not doing it alone. You're doing it with the aid or assistance of somebody else, or at least the moral support of somebody else. You're moving forward with this, with a team or as a part of a team, whether that's a two-person team or a 20-person team or whatever. All right, next up, we're looking at Virgo. 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 Okay, Virgos. You guys are showing up with the Ten of Wands coming up in reverse. Ten of Wands in reverse. That's interesting. This talks about, oh, that's interesting. It talks about that the responsibility that you're setting down today is actually the toxic thing, or it carries the toxic thing with it. So you're setting down some kind of responsibility. I feel like you're doing this very intentionally. And as you're setting down that responsibility, that is freeing you up from whatever this toxic thing was that was attached to it. Maybe this was a responsibility to a company or a person who is really toxic. And so the more you did with this responsibility, the more you had to communicate with them. And maybe that was, not helping you move forward. And so we see you setting down that burden today. Next up, we're looking at Leo. Leo, Leo, Leo. Leo. Let me show you guys the card. You got the Four of Pentacles. So Leo, this is interesting because this kind of puts a little bit of a mute on the overall energy. So this basically says that you're not exactly turning back on whatever this is that's toxic in your experience right now. You're not turning your back on it, but you're also holding back from it, or maybe even pulling back from it a little bit. So you're putting less energy and effort into that, but you haven't actually turned your back on it yet. Just not investing as much. So that was who? That was, we have who on the board? Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. Okay. So that would have been Libra. Libra holding back instead of turning the back on something toxic. Here's the thing, though, that I want to say, Libra. When you're holding back from that thing that's toxic, you also, because you haven't turned your back on it, it's good to be aware that because you haven't turned your back on it, you haven't turned towards whatever that is that allows you to transmit the legacy that you want to transmit. So you're kind of holding yourself in this limbo place where not only are you actually holding back from that toxic thing, but you're also still, because you haven't moved away from the toxic thing, being held back from doing that thing that you want to do. All right, let's look at Scorpio next. Scorpio, 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 Scorpio. All right, Scorpios. Okay, you guys have that side of the Judgment card in reverse. Oop-a-da-doo-doo. This is interesting. This says that we have actually that we've turned our backs on something that was toxic in the past. We've already let it go before today. However, we do have an opportunity to put our energy and effort back into it that shows up today. And I think that we remain focused on the legacy that we want to create. I don't think we go back to whatever this was that was toxic that we've already really turned loose of. We're not going to pick that back up again. Hmm. Okay. Okay, let's look at Sagittarius next. Sagittarius, Sagittarius. Sagittarius, you guys have the Five of Swords. Need my screensaver to not be on. Five of Swords showing up there. These cards have a lot of gloss. It's hard to lose all the glare on them. All right, so Sagittarius, I think you're turning your back on something that feels toxic and has been holding you back because there's some kind of big argument or debate and you guys just can't get on the same page. And so you're turning your back on that situation because it's obviously not working. Okay. Now let's look at Capricorn. Capricorn, Capricorn. Okay. So Capricorns, you guys have that side of the Nine of Pentacles. So Capricorns, this talks about the idea of that you have been independent and self-sufficient, probably for a decent amount of time now. And this talks about that as you're turning your back on something that is toxic, you are continuing on in that independent and self-sufficient energy. Okay. So whatever you're turning towards isn't another person or another company that you're leaning on. You're turning towards creating that legacy that you want to independently and self-sufficiently without anybody's interference. Next up, we're looking at Aquarius. Aquarius. Okay, Aquarius, you guys have the the Queen of Cups, but she's showing up in reverse and she's showing up upside down. Boop ba da doo doo doo. Whatever this is that you're turning your back on, this toxic thing or this toxic situation, Aquarius, I think that this is a really emotional situation for you today. And I think that actually this may have happened even before today for you. But I do think that whenever you turned your back on this toxic situation or toxic person, this was an emotional thing. This wasn't the easiest thing for you to do, even though you knew that it was the right thing to do. If you would have left it to your emotions, they would have went a completely different direction. And I think you're very well aware of that. Next up, we're looking at Pisces. Not saying one direction is right and the other is wrong. Just doing the reading, just observing the energy. Okay. If you want to know what's best, like which option is best, you can always get a reading and we can look at option A, B, option C, option D, however many options you have. Pisces. Okay, Pisces. So Pisces, you guys have the Tower card showing up here along with that overall energy of turning your back on something toxic, moving towards what kind of legacy you really want to leave. So here's the thing. I think, Pisces, that you were just too nice to turn your back on something toxic all on your own. And so I think what happened here is that this something toxic has blown up in your face, figuratively. And now you kind of have no choice but to turn your back on it, let it go, move forward into another direction. It is total eclipse energy. That's for sure. And we're right between two eclipses. So, or are we? Oh, no. I think the eclipse is the 5th. So this will be the day after the second eclipse. Still, definitely the energy is going to be strong at that point. So this would still make sense for eclipse time frame. The good thing about the tower is that whenever we get the tower showing up in our lives, it basically means we are making a change whether we want to or not. But if we move forward with this and start looking at, okay, how can I bring that sense of security back into my life again that I had before? What we find is that there are other ways to do that than what we did before that are actually better for us, that help us to grow and learn and move forward in very positive, happiness making ways. So, in the end, the Tower card is good. It's just only right at first that it can be breathtaking and make you feel like you have to get your legs under you. It can be quite a shock. But the long version of the story of the Tower is actually a happy ending. Okay? It's an improvement from before. All right, so that's what I've got for you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I am looking forward to reading for some of you later on today. Today is the 6th, I'm thinking. That's Saturday. Let me check my calendar. Yep. So I'm actually going to be doing readings at the Applewood location of For Heaven's Sake today. So if y'all want to come on down in there and get a reading in person, that's the way to do it today. And then, of course, if you want to schedule a reading online or on the phone, always you can just reach out to me for that. I could be able to fit you into the evening time, or we may have to schedule like for tomorrow or something like that. But the sooner you call, the sooner we can get you scheduled and taken care of. So, guys, remember, you guys are my wonderful supporters. Remember to put a thumbs up on the video, share it with others, and put comments down below. And thank you very much for being here. Everybody have a fantastic day. Peace out.